He's sitting right next to you, Michael.
Oh no, he's on the other page. That's the problem with this Zoom thing.
That's right. Everybody pointed where Michael is.
Yeah. Really? Hey, Lewis. Hi, Jan. Hey, Don. Mr. Beck is here.
Okay, well, you know what? We're gonna kick this thing off here.
Be Looney Tunes.
All right. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody. This is the very first one, so you're part of the I don't know what you call it when it's the first one, but it's the test. Okay.
Yeah, the guinea pig
The
test.
guinea pig test. Yeah. Now most of you no doubt know Ken and what he's been doing, but you know there's certain things about calling and callers that not everybody knows. Now, if you're a caller, of course, yeah, you probably know a lot more about it. So we're going to get some of these illusions covered. Okay, so I think I'm going to have to keep doing this. I should make Ken co-host it. That'll make him too busy. So let's find out. First off, Ken, where are you from?
I live in West Springfield, Massachusetts. Been here since 1981. Grew up in the state of Connecticut, so I've been a New Englander my entire life.
Didn't know about that Connecticut thing, but we won't hold that against you. And so when did you start square dancing? Not calling, but dancing.
Oh, well, it was almost one and the same. I took lessons in Waterbury in 1974 at the Park and Rec Department. Two brothers, some of you might have known them, I don't know, Tom and Phil Moran. They're literally brothers, and they ran square dance lessons for a club called the Happy Wanderers. It was sponsored by the Park and Rec, and my weekly fee to learn how to square dancing was a whopping 50 cents. So I really broke the bank trying to learn how to dance. I graduated in February '75, and well, at that time I was 17. And to be honest with you, in the '70s, there was a lot of young people. I know I'm sort of preaching to the choir to many people here, but there were a lot of teenagers. I mean, New England used to have its own teen festival with 8 halls and buses and 4 buildings. And it was really big, a big thing in New England, teens were. And that's really what sort of got me interested in sticking around. And I graduated in February '75, and I literally looked up at the stage and said, "Oh, I was out dancing every week. There was a whole bunch of us driving all around the state, going to different dances." And I says, "I'm going to get bored. I better learn to be a caller. That looks easy." And of course, the rest is history. It wasn't easy at all. Not for me.
No.
So I went to my first caller school was run by another 2 icons in Connecticut, Dave Hass and Ed Ruddy. Dave had a barn at his house, and he ran a weekly school. Wasn't a formalized school, but it was enough to get people to come every week. And that was really my first school I ever went to before later that summer going to Earl Johnston and Al Brunich's school up at East Hill Farms. And that's where I went for several years after that.
So who, at that time, who were the big callers?
Oh God, in New England, it was a who's who. Kip Garvey, Skip Smith, Jim Purcell, Jim Pulaski, Clint McLean, Rusty McLean, Ron Libby, Bob Gambell. I mean, I'm saying names that some of you will never have known, but I'm saying names that some of you might have heard too. You look at the old magazines, which I like to do once in a while for the New England square dance scene in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and it's like, of course, Don Beck knows all these. I mean, it was just like a who's who with John Henry, and we go on and on um, of the quality of callers just in New England alone. It was fascinating.
Oh, yeah, it was really fantastic. I mean, I don't think there's any one of them I haven't heard of or worked with. Uh, really fantastic people. I'm sure that the West Coast had, because we've traveled there and all, we know there's bunches and bunches on the West Coast. It's all through the states. There are
Oh, sure.
so many really good role models for us. Um, so, how would you describe yourself as a square dance caller? One word.
One word,
One word. Isn't that awful?
consistent.
Consistent. Ah, that's a good one. I like that. How would your mom and dad say what you do as a living then, if they were there?
Oh, well, my mother had the good fortune to hear me call once down at the New England has a square dance convention every April where it moves around every 2 years, different cities, and the callers volunteer. It's just, we don't bring in a headliner. And back in 94, it was in Waterbury, Connecticut, and I actually got my sister to bring my mother to one of the halls that I was calling in because I started in 75. In almost 20 years, she had never heard me call. I didn't have anyone in my family involved with square dancing. And my father, I don't know, he died many, many years before that. So that was long before I even started to dance. So I doubt he would have known anything anyway. But so it was sort of really touching to have my mother hear me just that one time. It was just one tip or, one tip. But I used to practice calling in my bedroom. And for those of you online to remember, you go to your room and you actually practice the four walls. All I remember her was I had felt like I had to blast the entire column speaker in a small, 8 by 8 room and call really loud. And she used to yell out, lower it, just lower it. I mean, she didn't know what I was saying because she wasn't involved in square dancing. Sounded like Chinese to her, but it was loud. And of course I kept saying, I can't lower it. I gotta call this at this loudness. Why? I don't know, but these are the silly things you look back on and think.
That's really good. So I guess if you could be remembered for one thing, or what would be the most important thing to be remembered by about you?
I'd have to say caller education. I don't think there's any surprise to anyone on the call here about my passion and love it. When I teach callers, I always say to them, especially newer ones, like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, what kind of caller do you want to be? Some come to the schools and they want to be just want to teach classes, which is great because we need great teachers. Some want to be local and regional. Some want to go beyond the regions. Some want to be national. Some want to learn how to record a song or how we all picked up something. Daryl Clendenin's on the line. He's had a successful career calling, but a super successful career teaching. So my passion has always been teaching callers, and that's really what I zeroed in on. And now if you follow the internet or know anything about caller schools, I tend to run a few of them once in a while. And it's just my passion. It's just something I really love to do. And I would have to believe if I was to be remembered for anything, would have to be caller education, good or bad, but caller education.
And of course, you have no background in teaching, so how on earth did you think you could be teaching callers,
Well,
right?
I do. Actually, my bachelor's degree was in secondary education English.
Aha.
So I went to school for teaching and then ended up being in medical sales the bulk of my career. Teaching just, I worked for parochial school for a couple of years out of college and the money just wasn't there. when I had been in working in hospitals through my college career, and the local distributor of medicines and products needed a New England rep. And they interviewed me and I got the job and I never looked back. So I stopped teaching. My career was 2 years, in the making. So,
Yeah.
which I enjoy because I've been able to have a flexible work schedule instead of, going somewhere 8 to 2 or 9 to 5. I mean, I can sort of work from the road if I have to.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Well, I was being facetious, of course, about your background because I
Yeah.
knew you you had gone to school and got your degree and sort of a thing. And you know, some people are just I shouldn't say born teachers, but boy, there are some people like Daryl and yourself and Don Beck and a number of people. Mickey is whether he realizes it or not, I would consider him a born teacher, leader. These
Oh, yeah.
guys like yourself, you have a way of saying uh, the right thing at the right time to make it work. Um, so I guess, what do you do to de-stress? Well, do you get stressed out at all? Like, what makes you nervous when you're calling?
What gets me nervous? Well, my earlier career, everything, getting up on stage or going to the national and seeing, all the big wigs there, and that made me nervous. I guess what makes me more nervous now is I continue to write higher challenge material like 3A and 3B, that it works, and then I see how it works, and I fix my cards as I go along. So I guess that's what makes me nervous.
Ah,
Nothing below that, though.
no, no, no. What would you do to de-stress then?
You mean outside of square dancing?
Yeah.
Um, well, I do a lot of reading, but now I read since I drive a lot. I listen to books in the car, and I don't know. I come home. I travel a lot at times. It goes in bunches, so it's like anything. We love to travel, but we all love to come home. So I like just to sit here in my sunroom and stare out the sunroom, and there's woods all around me. And I don't know. It sounds silly. I got my 2 cats, and it's just a way of relaxing. That's what I do.
Ah, very good. Do you get to dance much?
No, not anymore. I used to dance a lot, and then I got busier calling, and then, things changed through you get married, you have kids, and now I have some grandkids. So, um, dancing wise, not as much anymore.
Have the grandkids shown any interest in square dancing?
They're too young yet. I got a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 7-month-old. So,
Ah,
they're a ways off.
I've got a
If
6-year-old and she just tells us, Nana and Granddad, you go downstairs if you're going to dance.
nah,
So yeah, I commiserize. Uh, so I guess when you're teaching these callers, what what do you think is probably the most important thing for the new
um,
caller to figure out to do?
yeah, I know Don's on the call, Daryl, and a few others who do, teach callers. I think Mark Hart, a few others, but I think as you go along, and maybe they would contest it. You know, I don't teach my caller schools now as I did back in the 80s and 90s and early thousands. It's like teaching beginner classes. We don't teach exactly the way we taught 35 years after we started teaching, because you learn, you grow, you find out what works, you find out what doesn't work. And same thing with teaching callers. I think for newer callers, one of the biggest problems we have is it's not resolution, it's not trying to pair people up. I think newer callers need to understand where one call begins and where one call starts. I think a lot of them just have a hard time with that. It's funny though, you see callers, newer callers especially, they go to dances And you just say you called the plus dance and you called past the oceans, relay the deuces and ping pong circulates, or whatever the calls were. And they would do it just fine, even let's just say it's a mainstream dance. But then they have to go and they actually have to practice calling, and they don't know what to call. And that's why we need to start at the very basics for these people. I have changed through the years. I used to go under the assumption, and maybe because we had more experienced callers going to schools back then, that the callers knew exactly once you did for example, from the static square, head square through 4, that they knew they were going to be right in a corner box. I'm talking about ones that have been calling a few years, and then they can call several calls from there as soon as the square through finishes to keep the rhythm and the body flow going. But what I'm finding out when I say new callers, I'm not talking about brand new. I mean, if somebody's come to a caller school, they've never picked up a mic, I wouldn't expect them to understand, um, wind in your face type calling or understanding formations and arrangements. But to me, I found that a lot of the callers at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, they struggle if you do that exercise of, okay, get me into a right-handed two-face line or get me into a left-handed column. Even the ones that may be teaching a class or have a group or they teach once a week, they struggle trying to move dancers around. It's easy when we're dancing it, but then put yourself on the other side of the mic. And I think that's the key, because if they don't know what formations are, if they don't understand where they are in a square, they really can't help the dancers out, in my opinion.
No, that's true.
That's a
So,
long-winded answer, sorry.
that it's a long-winded question in a way, it requires a lot of attention. Uh, at any rate, so at any of these dances, what kind of a thing sticks out in your memory of something funny that's happened at a dance that you never expected would happen?
Oh, geez. Either as a caller or as a dancer.
And mostly as a caller.
As a caller. Um, well, I got a couple of funny, true stories. Again, I started when I was 17. So at 17, you know everything. You're a teenager and you know everything and no one could tell you. Um, but I had mentioned that I went to not Earl and Allen, I went to Dave Hassan, Ed Ruddy's school. Well, my mother was a nurse and she worked 11 to 7. So she would sleep like 3 to 11 before she got up to go to work. And I don't know what happened. Something was wrong with my car. So I thought nothing of her, just taking my mother's car without her knowing and driving, I don't know, an hour and a half away, and then letting her fend for herself to get to work that day. I didn't think about it, but I left her a note saying, "Mom, I'm sorry, I got to take your car. My car's broken and I can't miss caller school." Literally, it said something like that, something stupid like that. I don't know how I got past that. She ended up getting a ride into work, um, but I guess the bottom line is it's funny now that you look at it, but when I think about what I did, and I feel like saying, how stupid could I be? I loved square dancing so much when I learned that I didn't want to ever miss a dance during the week. So they used to have summer dances in East Hartford in an air conditioned hall. They'd bring in all the national callers, big callers that would be coming through. Every week would be a new name. And they'd probably get 25, 30 squares. It was a big deal. Well, again, for some reason, I didn't have a car and I don't remember why. So if you know anything about the state of Connecticut or any state that's got major highways, well, I decided to get on my bicycle and go down and start riding on Route 84, which is a major highway that runs east and west through the whole state of Connecticut. I mean, it's a highway. And I started riding my bike and I got probably a mile or two down on the highway. And I'm thinking, I wanted to go to the dance that bad. I was going to ride a bike on a highway. Now, how stupid is that? I wasn't thinking, and it was really dumb. And all of a sudden, believe it or not, can't tell me there's not a God sometimes. A carload of my dance friends were driving by to the dance, and they saw me on the highway and they stopped and they put my bike in the trunk and took me to the dance. And so I enjoyed the dance and then came home with the bike still in the trunk. But I mean, is that dumb or what? I mean, that's just flat out not thinking. And that's how much I loved the activity when I started. It was like, I didn't want to miss a caller's school and I didn't want to miss a dance, but it's like, so I literally was riding a bicycle on a highway thinking, well, not thinking, that was the problem. I wasn't thinking that I was going to ride all the way into Hartford, which is literally 30 miles away at least. I was never going to make it. So
Well,
I'm
yeah,
sure everyone's shaking their heads saying,
yeah,
what an idiot. But you know,
sure.
these are the
But
dumb things we do when we're teenagers and kids, right? True
well,
story.
what do you mean when we're kids and young?
Yeah, yeah.
I can think of a few from last week. Um,
Yeah,
why did I ever think I could do this? Uh,
exactly.
yeah, whatever. Well, I guess we have that confidence for some of us that we just go ahead and do that thing and don't think about, well, what about it? Now, um, I think it was Don Beck who in this square geography here is 2 rows down from me, so I'm looking down on you, Don. Anyhow, Don said he figures that being a square dance caller, you have to know and manage more things than probably any other profession going, because it's not necessarily the level of skill or talent, but it's all the balls in the air. It's at a dance, moving people, and all that that involves, which is humongous, right? And then
Yeah.
you got the finance part, you know. Did you ever think that you were going to have to do that? The travel arrangements, booking hotels, setting up a schedule, telling the IRS that you only made $20 this year. You know, when did that hit you that you had to do some of the, or it just kind of little by little came in?
I think it just came in. I just, you belong to caller associations and there'd always be a topic at one of the meetings about taxes and how do we do taxes? And of course, when BNI ASCAP came into play, now a lot of questions at meetings, there used to be, especially at schools when you have discussions, is newer callers. Well, how do you handle BMI ASCAP licensing? How do you handle bookkeeping? When does the IRS consider it a hobby as opposed to a job? And how much money you make? So, I mean, that's just stuff I just sort of grew into. It was a big thing back then because everyone would say, well, the busier you get, you have to call, you're going to make more money and invest it in equipment and things like that. But I don't know. I never really saw much issues with that. It was just at the schools answering the same type of questions that you had to discover how to keep records. And some people have really good ideas. And for the most part, everyone has a way of keeping their own records. But yeah, but going back to what you said about juggling balls in the air, I use that expression sometimes um, because there's so much to do when you're on that microphone. It's not just resolving choreography. It's not just calling choreography. We're there really to be entertainers. We're there to entertain. We're not up there just to bark orders and just say, do this, do that. The full package, as you know, callers entertain, and that involves the music selection and um, the style of calling they have. And of course, choreography and resolution is very important. Dancers want to know that they can accomplish what you've called, so the element left is a nice reward for them. But there's a lot more going on than just choreography, and sometimes that sort of gets lost in the sauce. That there's so much more they got to do. I mean, when you go to a national, and years ago it'd be a better example than nowadays, but you walk by some of the halls and you see, why is one hall more crowded than the next? And you look who's up on stage and you say, well, that's because that person's an accomplished professional. Dancers know if they go in that hall, they're gonna not only enjoy the dancing part of it, but they're gonna enjoy the entire professional package I think the caller brings to the table. Sounding like a caller, appearance on stage, how they look, their demeanor. Um, there's so much going on when you're up there. And that's why it takes a long time to be a really good accomplished caller, because I know a lot of students through the years where they know choreography and they pick it up really fast and they're really sharp. And next thing you know, they're calling all different types of um, crazy stuff because their mind sees it that well. But a lot of people don't see choreography that easy. I never saw it that easy. I had to work at it. It was not something that came natural to me. But there's so much more, as you said, to being a professional caller. And I always ask students or callers, would you rather be popular or would you rather be right? I've known a lot of callers here in New England through the years. I'm sure Don Beck knows them as well. They're like flaming stars. They come out, they don't really have a lot of technical, experience with them. Then to me, they're not a well, solid, rounded caller, but they're very popular and shiny on the outside, and they get a lot of work. But as far as the being technically a good caller and having a solid foundation, uh, they don't have it. And lots of times they don't last either. They're sort of like a shining star that burns out. I always say if you want to be popular, that's one thing. But if you want to be right, meaning you want the foundation inside you to make you the best caller you can be, then you'll always be popular. One just takes longer than the other because everyone wants to be famous right away, but it just doesn't happen that way.
I don't know why not. Um,
Yeah,
some of us are overnight, what do they call it? Overnight sensations. Only took us like 60 years to get here.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's,
The
you're
beauty,
exactly right.
but the beauty of being older like us is that there's hardly anybody out there that can remember and will say, I remember you when you were first starting, and boy, were you awful. Yeah.
Yeah, I still get that once in a while
Oh,
where
do
they'll
you?
say,
Yeah.
I remember dancing you when you first started calling. And I go, oh, geez, that was a long time ago,
Yeah.
talking almost 50 years.
Yeah. How old are you? Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, and I go, yeah, well, I think I've improved a little bit since then, but I still get that once in a while. Or I still have your pin that you gave out or your mug that you gave out 30 years ago that it's still in our camper. We still use it. And I go, "Well, I'm glad someone's using it."
Yeah, that's good. Uh, so what in high school, what was your talent? What were you known for?
Well, I won 2 awards in high school. I was class dancer because I started my first club as a senior in high school was the Crosby High Bulldogs. So it was the Crosby Square Dancers. I had 9 students. I had 2 men, one boy student, and the auto mechanics teacher who was a male. He was a student because you had to have 2 teachers sponsor your club. And then I had 7 women, 9 women. So I had 11 people in my class. And then the other award I won, nothing to be proud of, is class sleeper. So so they took pictures for the high school yearbook of me and this other girl sleeping in class with our pillows on the table. I guess I was working full time. I guess I didn't realize I might have had my head down a few times. But anyway, I did graduate. And here's another anecdote. Um, so it sounds weird. In 4 years of high school, I had perfect attendance. I didn't miss one day of high school. I might have been late a few times, but I never missed it. And I ended up getting geez, what they give? I think it was like a $2,000 scholarship or something for that. But So I know that's another corny thing you don't hear about, but that's just the way I was. I didn't want to miss things. I didn't want to miss caller school, so I stole my mother's car. I didn't want to miss a dance, so I got on a highway with a bicycle. I mean, dumb, stupid things like that. I guess that's how driven I was. I look at it now, I'd like to say I was driven, but I keep thinking how stupid I was.
Uh, I think some of us understand. Uh,
Yeah,
it's like you wonder how you could be so driven. In fact, I'm not sure about you, but I think probably for many of the callers on this site, they will say that they've worked harder to learn how to call and all the parts of it than it took to get perhaps a university degree.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I felt that way. I think I spent more time, yeah, practicing and yeah. Okay, time for commercial. Now, don't everybody go away, but because Ken's got some commercials, right? What would you like
Sure,
to advertise, Ken?
I
Your
always
next
got
commercial?
commercials. Well, for
Okay.
education anyway, the one thing that I've tried to do through the years, to be honest with you, is not just run color schools for the sake of running them, but I've started putting together some specialty schools. And this past year in California with Kip Garvey and Bill Harrison, we ran what we call the Teaching Institute. It was a school specialized on specific just teaching for 4 days. And there, it wasn't a school for somebody who's never picked up a mic. You've had to been calling for a while. We actually had 3 students from Sweden come over as well. So we're having our second one this coming September in Oakdale, California. Um, uh, if you need to get a flyer on it, you can email me or find it on my website, kenretucci.com. But anyways, I really think we need good teachers. And I know that when I started the call, um, there were so many clubs. What happens was, and still happens to this day around the country that I can see, not everywhere, but who normally teaches beginner classes? Usually you see newer callers, and newer callers are less expensive, and that's why a lot of them get it. It's not all the reason why they get it. Some start their own, more power to them, but the clubs tend to book inexpensive callers sometimes because they have to watch the bottom line. But I really think we need a school for to, to really make our teachers better teachers. And it was sold out, and I'm hoping some of you might consider coming to it. Everyone picked up a lot of good information in it. We didn't really get into much of the general calling school topics that you normally get because time didn't allow. But every once in a while, we would go into relationships or things like that. So the students can see that in a square while they're teaching. And for caller education, those are my big things. Mind Pack next year in August in Germany. Mickey Broutwaite, who's on the call with me, Michael, um, he runs a school called the Bavarian Caller School, and he and I are going to do a caller school before Mind Pack. So if there's anybody traveling over there or anybody from overseas, we'd love to have you join us. I've done several schools at Mickey. He puts on a really good school over in Germany, and I'm happy to be doing it again with them. So um, there's just a whole bunch of stuff, but the teaching school's the main one. And of course, I'd be amiss if I didn't mention that I'm excited finally to have Don back on staff with me next year for my big school in October, the Northeast Caller School. I will have Bear Miller, Tom Miller, Don Beck, and myself. And that's my biggest school. I usually get about 25 to 30 students a year, and it's structured differently. We don't have night classes, we have night dances. So every night the students get to dance and get the call, and to make it a fun entertainment. I think at caller schools, and some coaches that are on might agree or disagree. I think by 5 o'clock, people's minds are mush and they're tired. And I'm not a big proponent of night classes at a caller school if you could avoid them, because I think at some point people just get so tired, and I don't know how much they absorb after 5 o'clock. So the teaching school and my big school, the Northeast School, we'd love to have you. I get people from all over the country every year. And if you haven't come out east for a school, it's a good time of year to travel. The fall colors are beautiful. The weather is usually very nice, and so people can make a little vacation of it.
Very good, very good. Have you ever tracked how many callers have stuck with it after college school and whatever?
Formally, no. I often get asked, how many callers you think you've attended your schools? And I'll go, oh, gee, I don't know. Through the years of all the different schools, overseas or not, I don't know. There's got to be over 1,000, 2,000. I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm.
But have I tracked it that way? No. That's probably a good thing to do, but I'd say percentage wise, at least the ones in the States, I'd have to say, I'm gonna guess 60, 65% probably stayed with it through the years. Things change. You teach young callers. I don't charge for kids. Anybody under 18 is free. But I mean, I've seen a lot of kids come up at 12, 13, 14, and then they get into high school and they get a job or they start dating and they sort of die out. Very rare do you see kids last that long now, at
Mhm.
least in New England.
No, that's true. Um, okay, so that's end of the advertisements. We're back to the show. Um, what would you tell yourself? Let me say it this way. What would you tell your 18-year-old self if you could go back and talk to yourself back then um, about what you ought to be doing along calling lines? Did you really know what you were getting into, or see anything in the future like this?
Uh, no, I didn't really know what I was getting into, to be honest with you, because like I said, I didn't give myself, some people will wait a year or 2 or 3 and then maybe take up calling. I was young and stupid and graduated and decided I was just gonna go do it because I was calling so much. I thought I would burn out, get bored, but I think if I had to go back then, I know then what I know now, probably take it at a slower pace. I mean, I had no idea when you first start calling, I don't think anyone does, that, I would have had the good fortune to be able to run my own schools or call overseas or call at a festival or whatever I've done. Nobody knows this when you first start out. You don't know where you're going to go. Some aren't as fortunate, but others, like I said, just are very happy being strong regional callers and calling. And um, you know, traveling around the world isn't for everybody, and there's less of it nowadays because of COVID. And I don't know if it's ever going to get back to the part where it was before COVID. Hopefully it will. I think in some cases, or at least around the country, and from where I hear in some parts of Germany, it seems to be doing okay. But you know, I just found out a good challenge dancer out in California, probably my biggest fan. For some reason, he'd come to all my dances and I'd say, Bruce, I said, this is a mainstream dance tonight. I'm sure there's a challenge dance going on. No, no, he says, you're out here. I got to come support you. And the guy was really good. He was learning 3B. And then I emailed him the other day and said, hey, I'm going to be out in California February. Be nice to see you again. Can you put some flyers out for my advance day? And he wrote, well, I won't be much help to you anymore. I don't dance anymore. I picked up other hobbies since COVID and I stopped square dancing. And it was like, I was shocked. I
Mm.
mean, because he loved square dancing. He danced like 4, 5, 6 nights a week. And to me, it was sort of sad to hear that. But that's what's happened to our activities. I'm sure people on this call, know of others that um, they've heard stories like that as well. And it's sad.
It is. They get out of practice. They get out of the habit, and once you get out of that habit, it's hard to get back into it. Uh, some of the callers that I've seen who have been out of calling for 10, 20 years or whatever and come back to it, I'm really amazed that because they have half an idea of how tough it is to get back into it. Uh, so if you had a superpower, just one superpower, what would it be? What would you want to have?
Oh, geez, a superpower, somebody who can understand a high level challenge, technical. If I can have Et's brain and see it a lot faster than I do after I work it, that would be great.
Well,
But I don't have Et's brain, but
we'll work with that on it. That's going to be on one of the shows later,
I
and
bet that'd be great.
yeah, we'll see if we can't do some sort of
So, some
bring it
people
to me.
see that's just a minor thing, but you asked. Some people see things that, like I said, I wasn't born with a choreographic mind. That is something that I've worked at and have been successful now, but it didn't come easy. And then other people will say, "Well, I've worked hard for trying to improve my singing." Um, some people can sing better. We all bring different talents to the microphone, but
Yeah.
uh, that's you asked, so I'm just being honest. That was never one of my strong points. I'll admit it. But you know what? Practice makes perfect or whatever. So it's given me a great opportunity to write a lot of choreography that I might not have written if I didn't have the interest.
Yeah. Well, it I think like many of the callers that are on this particular Zoom session, um, we love all the levels. It's
Yeah,
you can't get enough of everything. It's just when you're teaching those beginners, it's so great to see them smile at getting their corner or or just when they're dancing a grand square and you can see it in their style, uh, as well as when you get into the higher levels of challenge and you know you do a finally this and then initially that and then
yeah.
all the modifiers. To me, it's all so much fun. So what was the last thing you Googled before coming onto this session?
Oh, jeez. What did I Google? Um,
And don't say
uh,
it was me.
no,
I
no,
know I'm
no.
talking.
What did I Google? Oh, I think I had to Google something about, uh, another passion when I grew up as a kid. I was thinking of this the other day. I think the two strongest passions I've ever had in my life, as far as obviously outside of family and things like that. One was baseball. When I was growing up as a kid, I played baseball a lot. Probably by the second year of high school, I realized I wasn't going to be a professional player like, millions of other kids. So I ended up just giving it up and getting a job and moving out my life. But when I was growing up, I used to be teased in the neighborhood because I would know all the players and all their batting averages and all the hits and all the home runs. So I mean, I just love that. That was my first passion was baseball. Now I think, oh my God, I don't know if I could sit down and actually watch a whole baseball game. I just don't think I have the patience for it anymore. So I don't watch baseball, but I sort of follow it. But the other passion was obviously once I took square dance lessons, I got bit by the calling bug, and um, that was it. You had asked my passion. My other passion for this activity has always been is the politics. I've always been involved in the politics of it. I think if in order to be involved with the politics, it means you have to be involved with all different aspects of it besides just callers. Obviously, there's dancers and dancer organizations and round dance cuers and things like that. But I've like many people on the call, I've done my share of being president of the local association. I was chairman of the NECA Association, which oversees all the smaller associations. And then, of course, well, Harlan he'll be the new past chair in a few months, but I'm currently the past chair of Color Lab. So I spent many years on the board and on the EC. Again, that was another passion of mine to get involved. And I've done that. So I'm not doing as much national politics anymore. My days with being that with Color Lab, I decided to step aside instead of just staying on the board. Let somebody else have a chance. I've paid my dues and I've enjoyed it, but those are the two things I'll walk away with. And of course, being a successful caller and being able to travel where I am, I don't take for granted how blessed I've been to have called literally, with the exception of the Orient, all over the world. I mean, I've been very fortunate to be in Russia 5 times. I have a lot of good Square Dance friends in Russia, and I feel for them and what's going on with them in Ukraine. And I'd really love to go back there and see them again, but it's really not a safe time to be traveling to Russia. But I think any of us on the call that have traveled, um, really have to sit back and appreciate going to different places literally around the world, and seeing how things are done differently, even with their own activity. Um, you can't put a price on that. I mean, it really is a universal worldwide activity. It's a music set, friendship set the music, and you don't realize that until you're halfway around the world and there's people dancing to what you're calling, and in a totally different country. It's sort of blows your mind when you first do it.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially in the foreign countries where you don't speak the language, the breaks, for me, the breaks are always shorter. If you can't talk the language, I mean, sign language goes just so far.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And although I've been very fortunate with even going to Russia, the people take good care of you over there. The ones that are always been with me, they speak very good English.
Mhm.
They never leave you alone. There's no safety issues. Um, and anytime I've been overseas, people have always been very kind and very helpful. Mickey's on the call. I just saw Mickey about 3 weeks ago and over in Germany. And so he comes over here. I try to take care of him. I go over there. He takes care of me. So,
Yeah.
uh, but I mean, these are the wonderful things. If you had told me when I was starting to call that I would be calling around the world, I'd say you're crazy. I says, I can't even resolve my corner, and you're asking me telling me I'm going to call around the world. But yeah, it's been a great ride. Obviously I feel I got less calling in front of me than I had behind me, but unless I'm going to live another 40, 50 years, but I doubt I'll have a microphone on my hand back then. So,
Well, it's hard to say
uh,
how long you're going to go. I never figured I was going to last this long anyhow, but I'm still at it. Um, so, do you figure you're going to keep on going? And
yeah, well, 75, let's see, I started in 75, and 2025 will be 50 years of calling. So,
yep.
that's sort of a milestone. And now basically what I do is I don't know, I guess I've been called a rainmaker, right? People that create things. But I'm pretty good at doing that. I've created obviously my big school for almost 20 years. I've created schools literally all around the country. I'm creating weekends. I'm now, along with Michael Broadway and one other person, involved with Mind Pack. That's a very big undertaking. Anyone who's familiar with the previous IPAC that Stefan ran, this is basically picking it up in that type of a venue. Um, so that's a huge undertaking. Just put together a new C3A weekend with Brock Weiss for September. Again, I just don't know. Sometimes I need to slap myself and say, enough, stop making these things. Stop this weekend. Don't do any more. Don't put a school there. Don't do this. And so sometimes I do stop, and other times I run it. Sometimes they're successful, and Sometimes they're not.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, you know? I think the days of, and you certainly know this, and I know many on the call know it, back in the 70s, 80s, maybe early 90s, callers really didn't get involved with like a lot of dancer recruitment because the clubs were so frequent and so strong that people would just come through the door, you know? Now it's like callers that have to start running, they're running more of their own programs. You know, if they're gonna do any type of work, I tell students to just start your own class. All you need is 8 people if you can get them. Easier said than done, but the days of just waiting for someone else to do the work for you if you want to do some calling in this activity, I think are over with. I mean, yeah, you still get asked to call it things, but I'm a believer in being a rainmaker and making things happen. And fortunately, some of the things I've done have lasted. I guess maybe that's a good sign of success, and some of them haven't. So, you know, not everything's going to work.
No, that's for sure. Not everything does work. So let's take some questions from the audience here.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, this is the dangerous part. Okay, so raise your hands as you know, and as I see them, I'll give them
I
a
think
go.
I put them all to sleep at this point.
I don't think so. Looks like Michael's doing something there. I'm not sure.
Oh, no, not Mickey.
No,
Oh,
Michael,
Michael. Hey,
you're
Michael. He's my
No,
bud.
put us to sleep. No, don't worry. I was awake. Don't worry. I don't worry. You didn't.
okay. He was just drying his nails. I don't know. You never know. Anybody have any questions for Ken?
See, I'm just, it's like, you know, I'm
Oh
just a
yeah.
caller. It is what it is. I don't, but those were true stories about riding the bike on the highway and, I mean, those really dumb, silly things, but I actually did do them because I wasn't thinking.
Ken,
Ken,
Oh, okay. Go
how
ahead,
did
Lou.
you come up with the your toast and gold star for you?
Oh, you know, I don't know. I was doing a weekend. I was doing some weekend somewhere and it was like one of those teaching blitz weekends. And I don't know. I just like the squares started breaking down. Then I'd look over and I'd say, I don't know how the expression popped in my mind, just saying, you're toast. And, meaning forget it. You guys are done. I can't help you. You're long gone. Let me turn my attention to somebody who has a chance. And then
Someone with gold
the
star.
gold star started out of, you know, as you know, people don't promenade as much anymore. They stop or they cut across the square, and promenades look like Chinese fire drills. Um, I started saying, no star for you, because it was sort of a takeoff on the old Seinfeld soup episode. No soup for you. So I said, no star for you. I says, gold star for you, because they promenaded all the way around. No star for you, no star for you. And people started laughing and they wanted stars. Sort of a silly thing you come up with, but it was based off of the Seinfeld episode of No Soup for You.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you for
Thank you,
reminding
Joe.
me of that, Lou.
That's, that's a good one. Uh, so I'll ask you a question again. Then, um, you know, the phrase "the show must go on," and has there been times or a time when you've had to call when you have not been feeling mentally up to it? You know, for some of us, our we just found out our parent died or our cat died
Right.
or something like that. So, can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, two things come to mind. One was will be March of 2018. It'll be 5 years coming up. I was on my way to New Hampshire to call a dance, and my sister called me and said my mother died. And now she had been in the nursing home and she wasn't doing well, so it didn't come as a total shock. But let's be honest, you know, we could see a loved one dying, and you know, it we don't like it, you know, it hurts. But until they actually die, it's a different story, the words are final. So I gotta admit, I didn't really feel like calling the dance that night, but I did. And, I made it through as many people would. Um, and the other one was, oh gee, I just lost track of my one was, oh, I used to do a big weekend with a caller, who's now since passed away, um, in New England. And we had it up at East Hill Farms, nice resort. That still holds some dancing weekends up there, but it was Bob Silva and Norma Silva, his wife, was the cure. They used to get 15 squares. That's as much as they could hold on the floor. It was a plus weekend. And East Hill Farms was always renovating buildings and such. So I had dinner. Again, another stupid thing I've done in my life. And I started to walk into one of the buildings under construction because I was just killing time before the Friday night dance started. And I started to walk down the hallway where there was wood planks, and I fell into the cellar. And it was only about a 10-foot drop, but locally the cement wasn't poured. So I broke some ribs, and here I am in the cellar, and I can't get out. I could see the window. There was no stairway because I fell where the stair was going to be. So finally, somebody heard me. They dropped the ladder, and I got out. And I ended up staying and calling the whole weekend with Bob. But every time I had a chance, I'd be in the hot tub and popping ibuprofen. And somebody gave me their bathing suit, which was 6 sizes too big. And that's all I remember. But I ended up calling the whole weekend, even though I was in pain. I didn't really realize I cracked ribs until I went to the hospital on that Monday morning. But so I guess, yeah, mentally I had a tough time, like many callers have done because of a death in the family. And the other one was just stupidity and having to suck it up to make it through the weekend.
Um,
See,
very,
I'm being very honest here. People don't know a lot of these stories. It's like, I,
that's,
I don't mind saying that I made mistakes or I've done crazy, silly things because it just shows the passion I had for the activity.
So I have a question.
Michael?
Yes,
Uh-oh.
so, no, I mean, there's no problem. No, one of the things I think most people, maybe they don't know, but when you were chairman, you were wonderful and gave the Chairman's Award to the Gay Callers Association and to the International Association of Gay Square Dance Clubs. Yay, thank you, thank you. So I'm curious, did you suffer any blowback from it? I don't think you would give a crap because that's the type of person you are, but did you? Was there any blowback?
No, not at all. It's a good
Okay.
question. And if there was, I would tell them to stick it because
Yes.
I knew a long time ago that those were the associations I wanted to award because I know what they've gone through and how much they to this day contribute to our activity. And the only thing, Michael, I feel sad about was I'm sort of like going to have a little asterisk next to my name as chairman because I never really had a convention. It was 2 years that we canceled because of COVID. I really wanted to give that award out in front of everybody that night on stage because GCA and GSDC definitely deserve that recognition. And I'm just sorry it didn't happen that way. It was the best way I could do it was the one Zoom meeting we had when I did give it out.
It worked, but it was well appreciated. It was very much.
Well, thank you. It was well deserved too. You got long overdue as far as I was concerned.
That's good. Uh, all right. Well, now, as you know, we've got it. Oh, okay. Let's go with Mickey.
Yeah, Ken,
Oh,
some
geez.
things you told with starting, in your teens, right? Seemed to be like reading my book. And even though you may say some things you did were dumb, just take the D and there's another word for it. And I guess it's called dedication.
Oh,
Yeah, I guess so. I've like I said, those are really true stories of mine. I just ate, slept, and drank square dancing. I remember I'd be in high school writing big names of callers I wanted to hire and run a festival with and all that. And I don't know, it was just that sort of helped me get through. And then, of course, I did it through college and then never stopped doing it. But yeah, these are just silly things. You look back now and say, I don't know what I was thinking, but it's just always been a big passion. And I just wish we had the numbers now that we used to have, but it's not to say someday we won't. But I'm be honest with you, I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime. I don't think Rome can be changed that soon, but let's hope it will.
Okay, we got Don Beck here. He's going to ask you a very serious question.
Actually, I wanted to mention something to the rest of the people. When Ken said that he was riding a bike down a highway, and if you're a New Englander, you know what Route 84 is. It's not just a highway, it's an interstate highway. I mean, yes, Ken, that,
Oh, it is, yeah.
yeah.
It's an interstate highway, yep.
I was expecting you to say you were pulled over by a cop or something.
Probably would have at some point. 30 miles on a bike is a long way to go. I think I only made 2. I don't think I would have made 30 miles, Don. I just wouldn't have done it. But that's how dedicated I was. And I just I just loved it so much and I still do. But, your perspectives change as you get older and things change. But, yeah,
I mean, you don't ride a bicycle on the interstate anymore?
no, I don't even ride a bicycle. Yeah. So these are
How
good.
how many dances have you gone away and forgot to collect your money?
Never, but I did, well, one, I should say. I got home and forgot to ask, and then they mailed it to me. That was
Yeah.
about it. Normally that's never been a problem.
Mickey?
Ken is very open-minded, and I wonder how he didn't tell the story, but wherever he comes, he would like to learn something. How is your Bavarian doing, Ken? You started when you were over here the first time.
Oh, it's very good. When I want to say chase left, I say chase links. And I
That's
know,
German. I'm
oh,
talking about the other thing.
oh no, you and your loopy thing there. He calls me loopy, which means a German dog or something, or I don't know what he's saying, but Mickey's just being silly, that's all.
Well, you can tell as soon as you see Mickey, and he does that smile, you know he's up to no good.
Yeah, he knows what he's talking about. But it's
I got to wear a mask the next time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for everybody being on, and I hope you
yeah,
have enjoyed Ken's presentation. I certainly have. I always, it's always so interesting. Um, Many times dancers and callers, especially newer callers, they think that behind the mic is the glory, and that we're always happy and always all we do is call. We go to the dance. It starts at 7. It's over at 9:30, and then we go away. Where I don't know, in a box, whatever it
yeah,
is,
I know. Yeah,
right? You know, but we're gone until the next dance. Um, and especially when you do things like New Year's Eve dances or these special dances, Valentine's and all, and at some point everybody's hugging and kissing and all, and all you got to hold on to is your microphone. You know,
oh, I
so
know.
many times people forget. Um, it's you got to be like Ken or like some of the rest of us. You just have to be so addicted. You're just going to do it anyhow, and
Yeah.
That's what Ken's for. Thank you, Ken.
Hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining. If anyone ever has any interest in color education, just get a hold of me. I'll help you any way I can. Um, and everyone, all the experienced people for getting on the call. And nice to see everyone. Joe, thanks for having me, for being the first. I hope your numbers grow. I'm sure they will. And Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Yes.
To your
Joe.
And I believe next week, I
Thank you,
think.
Joe. Thank you,
we
Ken.
have
Happy New Year.
Steve Cotman
Dear
next week, I
Louis,
believe.
Jan,
So,
Thank you, Ken. And Joe, thank you for starting this series. I look forward to getting to know some of the other callers better rather than just the
Yeah.
calling end of them. Great start, Ken.
and Don, thanks for all you do. I know you're at 998 recordings now.
It seems to be building up, isn't it?
Yeah, it does.
he's taught all the callers, Ken, there's no more left for you. Sorry.
Uh, that's all right. Somebody else's turn. But hey, thank you. If I can ever be of help to anybody, just reach out to me. Very
Thank you,
sus.
Ken.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Joe,
Good night. Bye-bye.
where are you going to post these at?
These are posted on Virtual Square Dance Facebook.
Okay.
That's mostly where anybody that knows of any other sites that I should post it on, let me know. I'll post it everywhere and anywhere. And I will have the recordings available in the future as well. All you have to do is ask, and it's on the cloud somewhere. I really don't know if there's anybody out there that does websites for free. I'm open. I have no website.
Joe, I've posted a lot of my videos on YouTube. It's free and pretty easy to post them
Oh,
up there.
well, I may
And
have to get you to show me how. Maybe.
gladly, no problem.
Okay.
And then easily make a playlist so you can just give one URL out and people can go to it and see all the things listed, all the different guys, and they can go
Okay.
create one. Yeah, we can work your way through one of those.
That,
Something I've learned to do since COVID.
you can see I haven't learned a thing. I've been busy Zoom calling and
Well, I've learned to Zoom. I've learned to edit videos. I've learned to load things up to YouTube.
wow, okay. I need.
COVID's been good to me.
Oh, gee. All righty. We'll see you down the road then.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Yolanda.
Thank you, Joe.